So welcome again, everyone. My name is Ed Holloway, and I'm the Chief Exec of the Macular Society. And thank you so much for joining us for our November My Macular and Me webinar. And we're so pleased to have you joining us for what should be a really groundbreaking discussion about a really exciting development in the treatment of dry age-related macular degeneration. So today we're exploring the remarkable results from the PRIMA system clinical trial, where over 84% of patients with dry AMD regained the ability to read letters, numbers, and words through an innovative new implant technology. And to guide us through this exciting breakthrough, we're honoured to welcome Mr. Mahi Muqit, who is a leading expert in vitreoretinal surgery and artificial vision research. He is a senior vitreoretinal consultant at Moorfields Eye Hospital, associate professor at the Institute of Ophthalmology at UCL, and a clinical researcher at Moorfields and UCL Biomedical Research Centre. With a decade of experience in artificial vision research, he has been at the forefront of pioneering clinical trials in this field. His expertise spans diabetic retinopathy, AMD, artificial visual prosthesis, and vitreoretinal surgery. Tonight, he'll share insights in how the PRIMA system works and what these trial results mean for the future of treating patients with dry AMD. We've had lots of questions submitted in advance, but if you have questions as we go through this evening, please do add them to chat, and then we'll ask as many as we can after Mahi has finished presenting. So thank you again for joining us this evening, and I'll now hand over to you to tell us about this research.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you for the kind introduction, and welcome everyone to this evening's session. So as you may have heard recently, a landmark publication went out for patients with dry age-related macular degeneration and geographic atrophy, where a device called the PRIMA had been surgically implanted in blind patients with this condition. And the trial was called the Primavera trial, initially run with Pixie Vision and now run by Science Corporation in America. This was a multi-center, which means the research surgery was done across lots of hospitals in Europe. Moorfields was one of the UK site, and I was the surgeon leading it here. So what we found is that when we actually surgically implanted this device under the macula of patients with geographic atrophy, we found that at 1 year, the implant could significantly improve vision in over 80% of patients who were implanted. Not just improve vision, but actually produce meaningful vision, which is called form vision. So form vision is actually seeing letters, numbers, and then reading words, in some cases writing what they can see. So this is quite remarkable for a retinal chip, because previously all devices weren't able to give form vision. And as you're all listening in, form vision is what people want to see. That's what's going to make an impact in your daily life. So we're very pleased to report these results after quite a complex and rigorous clinical trial, which is still ongoing, and the patients are still being followed up in what's called an extension study. So that's where we are just now. We're still running the trials. Patients are still coming back, yeah. So it's fantastic to speak to UK patients, because I work at Moorfields. I'm very delighted to speak about this technology, what it means for our patients. I'm so happy to take any questions about any aspect of this device and clinical trial.
Thank you very much. I wonder to start us off, if you could perhaps describe a little bit about what the device looks like. I think it's a bit difficult to picture, and it's quite a complex device, isn't it, with lots of different parts. So perhaps if you could just explain a bit about what it is and how it works.
Yeah, so the PRIMA chip itself, the size is micro. It's 2 by 2 millimeters, so it's very, very small. It's also very, very thin. If you imagine a human hair, it's about half the thickness of a human hair. And the reason it is so small and so thin is because the location in which we implant the chip is a very minute space called the subretinal space. So you've got the retina, which is the seeing part of the eye, and the actual chip has to fit into a particular location, which is very, very thin and small. The chip itself has, if you're looking at it from above, you'll see some small dots scattered around. Called electrodes. They're actually small cells, which are called photovoltaic cells. So if you imagine a solar panel, if you ever saw a solar panel, that's actually made up of photovoltaic cells. And they catch sunlight and produce electrical energy to heat our houses up. And this chip works in the same way. It's got 378 of these pixels, these photovoltaic cells across this array, and that's how it's actually designed to receive the light from the visual.
And there are other bits of the system as well, aren't there, to make it all work? Can you describe a bit about what the sort of patient experience is?
Yeah, so that's the actual one part of the platform. So it is a medical device, so it's made up of a number of parts. So the chip's inside our patient's eye. They then have a pair of glasses, which have a small cable attached to a pocket processor, which looks like a very kind of original mobile phone. It's quite large. It sits on their waistline, and in the glasses themselves, the lens which is facing the eye, which has been implanted. On the outside, so the world-facing part, there's a video camera, and that video camera is capturing what you're looking at in the visual world. And once it captures it, it basically just captures the light. That's how we see really. We capture light that's reflective of objects, and we process it to then see something. So the light comes in through the video camera. It then flies around the camera, gets processed, goes back and forth through the chip. And actually infrared light is created by this light. So this whole platform in the glasses creates these infrared light signals, which are then beamed on the eye-facing part of the lens. It shines on the actual chip. The chip then fires up, is activated, and then when it's activated, it creates signals within the retina, and these signals pass down the optic nerve to the brain. So essentially, when you put the glasses on, this whole kind of loop that I'm describing all happens almost immediately. It's just immediately happens. So, and the device starts working.
Wow, extraordinary. One of the questions were, how practical is this as a device? So we've had previous webinars talking about different sort of wearable devices, and they have a benefit, but then in reality they're quite bulky, quite uncomfortable, and maybe a bit of hassle. Is this something which is sort of livable for people on a daily basis?
Yeah, so the way to look at this particular the PRIMA system is that this is version 1.
Yeah.
And as you're running through a clinical trial, we're constantly getting feedback from all of the patients who are implanted about their experience of using the device, wearing the device, what could be better, what's bothering them, is it the size of the glass, the fit of the glasses, the pocket processor. And yes, I agree. I mean, this is something that the great thing is the company have actually listened to a lot of the feedback. and thinking about a real world experience.
Mm.
And one of the big things, as you say, is you want to be able to take this platform from inside your house outside. And already the company are looking to design new glasses, for example. These glasses will be completely wireless. They've been shown on various sort of websites and things for some of the media coverage. And so essentially they'll look like a pair of kind of flashy sunglasses that you can just put on. There's no cables. There's no kind of camera sticking out. Everything is integrated into the lens. So essentially our patients could just go outside, lift out the pair of glasses, pop them on, which again answers your question. And for patients, that would be obviously something very convenient. You know.
Yeah, so of all technology, the version 1 sort of shows that it works and shows that it's possible, but then there's lots of iterations, aren't there, before it becomes usable. You talked about the trial is ongoing, so this extension phase where you sort of follow up with people. Are there further trials happening? I mean, obviously one of the questions has been how can people get on the trial? Is that something that's possible? What's the sort of next stages look like?
This particular trial is moving into the extension phase, so we're just continuing to follow up our patients because we have new things that we want them to try. There's new upgrades to the software. We're looking at other ways of looking at how the device works. Looking to see if they can see things better. So this particular trial is not recruiting any patients. There are other trials being planned, not currently in the UK, and these particular trials will be looking at other conditions, which is retinitis pigmentosa, Stargardt's disease, or these genetic eye conditions, which are the next indication that we naturally fit this particular device because those conditions don't have any current treatments to restore vision.
Yeah.
Some patients become blind, unfortunately. Nothing can bring the vision back. So this is one particular trial I'm aware of that will be starting soon, but not here in the UK.
Okay. And you've mentioned those other conditions. And everyone, we're looking at your questions on the night, but also questions in advance. So we'll do our best to get through as many as we can. But one of the questions we had in advance was why this was for dry AMD but not wet AMD. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So with wet AMD, it's a completely different condition, where you actually have the under the retina, as you know, that one of the layers called retinal pigment epithelium starts to wear out. It's like wearing out the carpet, really. And then the floorboards start to wear out, and suddenly you get these blood vessels growing up through them. They start leaking fluid, you get blood. And that particular space, which is called the subretinal space, has a lot of inflammation. You can get a bit of scarring, you can get small lesions. So if you imagine you kind of post the device into that region, the condition is still active. The device would really be able to work because you have an active condition. And also, you may trigger a relapse of the condition. So it isn't really designed for patients who've had that condition in the past because it's not safe. Yeah.
Thank you. Just trying to sort of group similar questions together. I guess one of the sort of core questions is how long do you think it might be until this treatment could be made more widely available outside of clinical trials?
The company has started the process of what's called CE marking for medical devices. that started a few months ago once the safety board approved the trial results. So that will take anywhere between 6 and 9 months to go through. But once you have that marking, essentially then have a license to start approaching all of the different countries to try and get the device approved for clinical use. So we've already started kind of preliminary discussions with the company. It takes some time, and certainly we're probably looking at least 2 years minimum before even trying to get this in the UK, because the CE marking process takes time. Moving into next year, approval process take time. But clearly, I'm not aware of anything else which can deliver this effect for patients. So currently, it's a standalone product which certainly would meet a huge unmet need for patients. So certainly favourable for the NHS.
And presumably that process you've talked about for making it clinically available, likely that would initially be on a private basis, and then a decision on if this is something that's made available to the NHS is the funding decision, where the sort of costs and the benefits get evaluated.
Not exactly, actually. I mean, in the UK, the aim is to go NHS. So I'll obviously be leading that. Yeah, I'll be leading that adoption process in the UK. But certainly my understanding and my objective would be to get it to NHS patients. You want to have a wide access for patients through the NHS as the first door to open. I personally have really thought about the other sector. It's going to come through the NHS. Moorfields will be leading the adoption, and then obviously we'll start to expand the availability depending on really what the regulators say, how they wish to. Again, I'm really just, this is all hypothetical, but sometimes when you have a new technology, there's a kind of process that initially you follow before it becomes more widely available. It's called post-market kind of study almost. You push it to the NHS and see how things go. But again, I'm not quite sure about the technicalities, because this is obviously a new thing. It's not really been probably pitched to regulatory authorities such as NICE before. There has been other devices, but they didn't really give meaningful vision. But this is the first one of its kind. So I think there'll be different types of discussions going on at that level.
Very exciting. And we've got some sort of more questions on the practicalities, I guess. So you talked about patients could read letters and numbers. People are asking what sort of size text are we talking about, to give people context of what that might mean?
So it's coming back to the fact that it's an actual device. It isn't just a kind of case of putting on the glasses and suddenly you're reading a book. The actual pocket processor the patient wears has a few functions, such as contrast, brightness, and actually zoom. So that's quite a crucial thing to remember, is that you have to use the zoom function to really get good clarity of your letter recognition, number recognition, and reading ability. And it has different levels of zoom that the patients can use depending on how far away the text is, how small they want to see. But it's only with the zoom that you can actually see what you can actually read. So we've had patients. I'll give you an example. So we had some patients in other countries such as France, Germany, who are sort of wandering into a train station or bus station, and obviously they stop. They then focus on signage, like a train timetable, and then they can start to zoom in on those particular areas and actually to read what's on it. So they can read the names of the stations, platform number, and it's all static imaging, so it's not things are moving. And when you're indoors, it's the same. So you obviously find your kind of reading position. You can hold things in position and then use the zoom to actually then focus and read um, what's in front of you. So yeah.
Wow. So it really is quite extraordinary. And I think that answers the question. Someone had asked it whether it gives you your full field of vision or just partial.
Yeah, that's important to realize. I mean, it's a small chip, so as I said, it's all going back to version 1. Um, so you clearly there's a small field of vision that you can see, so you can get a certain number of letters on the actual chip at one time. So you have to obviously move around to read along the lines on the text or on signage. Um, but again, this is version 1.
Yeah.
We're already thinking of further ahead, but certainly to get people started seeing again, this is be the version that's going to be coming to market. So yeah.
Yeah. Someone had a follow-up question. I think it was the kind of font size question. Is it possible to recognize faces with this device?
That's a good question. Yes, so that's something which we've been exploring with this particular system. Currently, you can't recognize faces, so let's be clear about that. We've never reported that as something it can do. And there's certain reasons for that. It's to do with different types of grayscale and contrast sensitivity, which means how you see things. So if you imagine on your TV and you're controlling the different settings, you can adjust the contrast, make things darker, whiter, darker, light. This is actually an area that's been looked at. Stanford are looking at it. They presented recently at a big meeting in Detroit about how this is going to be taken forwards. But certainly, it looks again as a possibility that it could be achievable. That this is something again which hopefully by the time it comes to market, the software will have been refined even further to enable some form of facial recognition. But again, it's completely hypothetical,
Yeah.
but it is something which this is all to do with again listening to the patients, trying to expand the functionality of the device. But as I said, in a few years' time, we may be speaking about other aspects of vision. Yeah.
And several people have asked, is it a chip in just one eye or both eyes?
We only implanted one eye. It's usually the eye with the worst vision. Um, so, so yeah, currently it is one eye. That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And is it the sort of thing that could be rejected in terms of the implant by the eye, or does it have how long might the implant last? Does it break down at some point and might it need to be replaced?
Yeah. So obviously you're putting something foreign in the eye, and the before we even got to the clinical trials that had been tested in models, which were human, to test whether there's any kind of reaction around the implant and the surrounding tissue. The answer is no. Um, there was actually a small study done in Paris, ran by Yannick Lemaire, who's one of the pioneers of this whole innovation. And he implanted 5 patients, and there was no signs of any issues. I then had a follow-up study that we ran with a group of our researchers up to 3 years. So we looked at the device inside the retina, um, and again, we weren't able to see any signs of any kind of, you could call rejection,
Mm.
any signs of any kind of unusual activity around the implant. It just sits quite quietly there. Um, the only changes you get are just generally changes in the eye, from natural changes in the eye. Um, but the implant itself doesn't trigger anything new that we've seen or anything unusual. So patients would be reassured that it just kind of sits inside the eye. So yeah.
And therefore we don't know how long it might last.
So I'm I mean, my understanding now that some of the longest chips are about 6 or 7 years in humans. And obviously that data is continuously being collected
Yeah.
because the trials only started about 6 or 7 years ago. Obviously in non-human models, it's much longer. But yeah, it's about 6 or 7 years so far. And we're not seeing any kind of safety signals from having the chip in the eye that I'm aware of.
And does that central vision from the chip, can that be combined with peripheral vision that the individual might still have? How does it sort of work?
Yeah, so that was actually a study done by Daniel Palanker at Stanford. They did it's called simultaneous perception. So it's, as you say, using central and peripheral vision at the same time, and seeing how patients were able to see both using the central and peripheral vision. So the glasses are transparent, they're clear. And what they found was that patients were able to both use what's left in the peripheral vision and also use what's called prosthetic vision, this bionic vision. And they were able to use that without any interference. The brain was adapting. And that was published in a very leading journal called Nature. So it was a number of years ago. So yeah, that is entirely possible. Yeah.
It's incredible, the brain's ability to adapt to new situations, and extraordinary. I'm just going through other questions. I think you'd answered this. So someone asking whether with genetic, not age-related geographic atrophy, and you're saying that's an active kind of focus of research.
Can you just give me 1 second? I just have to pause for 1 second, okay? Sorry.
Yeah, of course. We'll keep your questions coming in, everyone. And as I say, we've had lots of questions. I know lots of people want to ask about this really exciting development. So keep them coming in, and we will do our best to answer them as much as we can. While we just pause for a second, just to remind everyone, so this is the final webinar of our 2025 season. So thank you to everyone who's joined either tonight or one of our other webinars this year. It's been a real privilege from my perspective to be able to share these conversations with you and to learn so much from our expert speakers. And we'll be back in the new year with another full lineup of expert guests. And our first webinar for next year will be on the 20th of January. It's always the third Tuesday of the month at our usual time of 7 p.m. And we'll be announcing the topic for that soon. And welcome back. Everything okay? Can you hear me?
I smell something I smell something burning, actually. I was just trying to
yeah.
sort something out.
Everything okay?
Yeah, I was just making sure. So it's all under control. So sorry about that. Yeah, go ahead.
No problem at all. I was just updating people on a kind of upcoming program. So yeah, I was just asking, and I think you'd answered this, that the sort of other particularly genetic conditions, that's very much an active focus for research.
Yeah. I mean, I did some implant surgery. So Pixium Vision had originally was who developed PRIMA, and they had another device, which is a different type of device for retinitis pigmentosa. So I implanted several patients at Moorfields. But what that experience told me was I did meet quite a number of patients with retinitis pigmentosa who had very poor vision, if not no vision. So I spent about a year meeting many patients, kind of understanding what the need was, what they were wanting, what their expectations were. There were younger patients as well as older patients. So that's actually quite valuable. Although that particular device didn't give patients meaningful vision, it sort of resonated throughout the company and still is amongst all of the clinicians who are working on the trial who work in different countries, that particular condition really needs to be addressed at some point with the PRIMA. So just to reassure anyone on the call that this is an area which is being looked at actively. for vision restoration.
Yeah, fantastic. And how does the chip implant sort of connect, if that's the right word, to the eye? And I think you've answered it. They're asking the sort of number of the resolution. I think so. It's 378. Is that right tonight?
Yeah, it's so the cells which are lost in this condition are called photoreceptors. These are the microscopic cells which capture light and then trigger all the reactions in the retina that create the signals, which allow you to see. And the dry macular degeneration and other conditions, patients unfortunately lose the photoreceptors, and that's why they lose the ability to see. And the way to look at it is this particular chip is like an electronic photoreceptor. In fact, it's an array of electronic photoreceptors. So each individual pixel, so it's 378 pixels, they operate and function very similarly to a human photoreceptor. So when it gets stimulated, you get what's called an electromagnetic wave and a field occurring around the pixel, which then stimulates the remaining layers of the retina. And it works in a very similar way. So the chemical reactions are the same as a human retina. The electrical signals in the retina are the same as a human retina. And this is what was shown in Stanford by many, many experiments, many, many investigations. And that's what really led to the success of this, was that they designed something which is very close to how the human retina will work and also can give you good resolution. And that's why we've ended up with patients seeing again with forward vision.
And you've talked about how this technology is improving, as the development goes on. Obviously, part of the technology is that chip which is implanted into the eye. Do you see that as something that might be upgraded at some point for individuals? Might they go in and have a new chip inserted?
Yeah, so we've actually got some experience of that we do believe that I'm just giving very hypothetical things now. So say in the future there was a larger chip, for example. Let's say someone's condition worsened, and they were thinking like, I need a large chip to see more, etc. I can read faster and read more. So we do have some experience that these chips could be replaced. So they could be removed and replaced safely without any particular trauma to the crucial parts of the eye. So, so yes, that is again something which has been thought about, tested, and there's signs that that is entirely possible. Yeah.
And the procedure itself, how long does the process take? And someone's asked if it's under general or local anaesthetic.
Yeah, so the operation, if you walked into an eye hospital tomorrow, you'd have a number of patients having something called a vitrectomy operation that are done by retinal surgeons. The conditions like retinal detachment, macular hole, diabetic complications. So that actual operation is a very routine operation. It's done as it's been done regularly. We know the safety profile. It's a pretty standard operation. So that's what's used for the implant, is a vitrectomy, where you remove the jelly from the inside of the eye. That's the vitrectomy part. And this operation, I personally did all of them under local anesthesia, by patients having sedation. They were all very happy to have it done. You can put patients to sleep, but all my patients were awake with some sedation. And the operation takes about 2 hours, 1.5 to 2 hours. I think in reality, it'll probably be a bit faster, because when you're doing research operations, there is a bit more kind of more time taken. But yeah, and I think that's a reasonable time to do a complex eye operation, given the number of complex ones we do these days. I don't think it's too long. I think the patients can tolerate that. And yeah, there's not any additional risks from having an operation at that length of time.
Wow. And it's a black and white image. Is color vision a possibility?
Yeah, so it's black and white. Some patients do report other types of color perceptions that we hear from different patients. But currently, yes, it's black and white, which yeah.
Okay. And if you've had the operation, you're not wearing the glasses. What do you experience then? Does it kind of reduce your vision even further because you've got this chip, but the glasses aren't being worn?
Not particularly, because the actual central part of your vision is dark. So the chip sits there, and the patients are completely unaware of any
Yeah.
change in their vision, to be honest. So no, it just sits there quite quietly. So,
But that's why it's only relevant for people who've had that level of vision loss.
exactly, yeah, exactly. I mean, you have to have a certain level of vision that the device will work with, the PRIMA will work with. If your vision's too good, then you can't improve the vision beyond the capability of the actual device. So it's been aimed at patients with a obviously very poor level of vision. That's where the maximum benefit's been shown. Yeah.
Yeah. And how long does it take someone to learn how to use the device? Is it a quick process, or does it take a long time to sort of get used to it and adjust?
Yeah, so if it's usually a few months. So the um, the patients that come onto the clinical trials are they are very their expectations are set. So they know that it's going to take a bit of time. Um, there's a kind of slow roll up to what they want to achieve, which is seeing again, and that usually takes several months, usually between 2 and 4 months approximately. Um, some patients move at different speeds. Um, they've all been very highly motivated um, to come in, and usually you start with just orientating yourself. So they might just show you very kind of basic objects so you can capture your what's called spatial awareness, so you'll know when you're looking through the glasses where you're actually seeing, catching edges of things and things. So yeah, but it takes about 2 or 4 months before they're actually on to actually seeing full vision, and then you're presenting like letters, numbers, and words and things. So yeah, yeah.
And that's a sort of training process involving, working with a health professional in the clinic to get to learn to use the device.
Yeah, there's a range of take sort of folks at work. So you can have orthoptists are used, optometrists. We have technicians, low vision specialists. There's a range of staff that are delivering the training. And the key is obviously just understanding the needs of someone with low vision, and understanding the pace at which they move at. Because it's going to be ups and downs. Some days it's a bit tiring coming into hospital, the travel, doing the training. So some sessions are maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours. We're quite flexible. There's breaks, but yeah. So it can be in different settings. You can have different specialists doing the training for the patients. Yeah.
And I think it was around 30 patients in the UK, or was that in Europe? The number of people
It
involved
was
in the trial.
it was 38 patients across Europe. We
Right.
had 5 patients in Moorfields. So
Okay.
the intention was really to spread all the patients across different countries, to give everyone an opportunity to participate, and also to have different people doing the operation, because that obviously shows that that it is feasible across different populations, different surgeons.
Yeah. Just scanning through the questions because there's a few that have been asked a few times. I know you've talked about your, very much focus on having the treatment available on the NHS. We've had a few questions about cost. Do we have any sense as to what this device might cost?
I think that there'll be different impressions of cost across different countries. I can't imagine it's going to be at the same level as something like gene therapy. So I work in different gene therapy trials as well, and there's been a gene therapy approved in the NHS, and I understand you could read that it was very, very expensive. And we don't really know what the actual cost was that was approved. But certainly will not be in those levels at all. Um, the figures available, but I think it'll be at an affordable cost based on the cost benefit, but that's up to the regulators to decide that really. But from my understanding, it's not going to be prohibitive because at the end of the day, if you've got something which has such a significant benefit for patients, you certainly want to get that to your patients and not limit access in different countries due to cost.
Yeah, very exciting. And what was the average age of the clinical trial participants?
Around the 70s, the patients range. They sort of range from late 60s to up to 90s. I had someone in their 90s who was in my trial. Very fit, motivated, active patient who was determined to see again, and is still part of the study, and it's working. So age is not really, that is a condition, it's age-related macular degeneration,
Yeah,
but that isn't something personally that we were looking at, to be honest. Some people came and said, well, look, I'm 95 or something, and I'm not sure if I really want to do it due to health reasons, but that certainly wasn't a concern of mine. I just wanted to make sure the right patients understood what was on offer, and they were willing to give their time up to help us with the
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And you implied that the surgery is sort of relatively straightforward, although straightforward from ophthalmic surgeon. Not a DIY upgrade, but are you looking at training other surgeons to perform this, and how complex a process might that be for someone new to learn that process?
So we've got experience of that anyway, because I'm involved with a group of surgeons who are we deliver training to new surgeons in different countries. So we have trained up other surgeons on the actual procedure itself, and because we know so much about it, we're able to give them advice about um, the different complexities. But there's just like a small section of the surgery that I believe just requires a training. The rest of it is something which is just something we routinely do every day in our practice as part of the vitrectomy operation. But certainly the training can be done quite quickly within a few weeks, a month. And with any kind of medical device, you always have support when you start anyway, whether it's from companies or peers. So, and all the surgeons have delivered. We had many surgeons on the trial who were all trained up. Many were trained up for the first time. They had delivered the implant successfully. So yeah.
Fantastic. So I was asking about access in the Netherlands. I don't know if the Netherlands were part of this clinical trial or
I
part of the research.
There was actually, yeah. There's a surgeon. There's a centre in the Netherlands. So that'll be one of the countries who they'll be approached in the future for their agency, healthcare agency. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. And on the sort of geography theme, someone's asked about availability in the US and whether doctors there are involved. It's a US-based company, isn't it?
Yeah, there's actually a clinical trial running in the US. It started in Pittsburgh. So I was there for the first surgery with Jose Martel, who's a senior vitreoretinal surgeon at Pittsburgh. Um, in fact, one of the founding members of the company um, is the chair of the units in Pittsburgh, Jose Sahel. The study also ran through a number of centres in the US, and that trial is ongoing. But certainly the NEA have been involved with a lot of discussions. They quite like to be involved through the whole journey to help companies deliver therapies that will be successful. So yeah, the company's based in the US. So clearly that will be one of the major markets for the PRIMA. Yes.
And the same person had asked whether it's something that might be available on Medicare or Medicaid. But presumably the hope is that it might. I don't know how much you know about those kind of funding systems in the US.
I know zero about that,
Yeah.
fortunately. So
And
I
it's
know with the NHS it's free, so that's all I know. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, thank you. Just scanning. Well, once if it were to be approved on the NHS, what do you think the sort of route to access would look like and for referral?
So I could see us at Moorfields being the initial site being set up because obviously we have the expertise, we have the infrastructure, um, and we are certainly it'd be a quicker way to adopt um, the system because often when something gets approved, there's a window within which you should start to deliver therapies according to NICE. Again, we're
Yeah.
jumping ahead of the gun, but that's generally how it goes. Um, and then what I would probably assume is that we would start working with other centres in the UK. Um, and I've got many surgeons who've shown an interest and have for many years when they've heard about the technology. They talk about the patients. And I myself have actually worked all across the UK. So I've worked in Scotland. I spent a lot of time in Glasgow. I've worked in Yorkshire, Manchester, Oxford. So I've kind of got a sense of um, the networks which are existing. Um, and yeah, we'd certainly be looking to roll out across the UK because at the end of the day, the patients, are everywhere. So that would be the aim of the of delivering this therapy. Yeah.
And I know you'd answered this before. I think people, are joining at different times. So in terms of the timeline for approval, um, you said that the CE process is ongoing right now, but just to say again, what's the sort of maybe if we give us best case and a less optimistic scenario as to when this might
Yeah.
be?
I mean, I think just to kind of quieten things down, I think you're looking at about 2027, 2028, I think, to be honest. Um,
Okay.
is where people will be talking about it. Macular Society will know about it. Um, probably first. See one of the biggest
Yeah. So
patient
we, we
group.
will
So
we will certainly be following this news as it progresses, and we'll keep people updated. So yeah, you'll absolutely hear it from us as we see the progress you're describing. I mean, 2027, 2028. It'd be better if it was 2026, but in the scheme of medical research and progress, that feels pretty quick to me. And I appreciate there's been a lot of work to get to this point, but it's
yeah, I mean, I think we're going to. It's all about hearing what they think about the NHS. Until it gets to their desk. They have the systems. There's lots of different groups within the AS England, NICE. Um, so yeah, we'll obviously try to accelerate things because if there's no treatment for something, um, is there an option to accelerate things? But again, everyone will go at the correct pace to make sure that it's the right thing to do. but again, there is nothing available here. It's demonstrated effect patients can see again. So yeah, that's what patients want. Yeah.
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 And just to reassure everyone, when those processes are ongoing, processes like NICE, the Macular Society, absolutely participates in those kinds of discussions, and we're doing all we can to communicate to those decision makers how important this is, and to make sure that the voice of people affected by macular disease is part of that conversation. So that's absolutely something that will be our focus for any new treatment that we believe is useful to our community. We will be doing absolutely the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, you've actually helped with a piece of kind of patient engagement work we did a few years ago. So we ran a very large patient survey in the Macular Society. We ran it in Germany, Italy, the US, and France. And we're currently looking to publish that, and that was serving a lot of your members
Yeah.
about what they used to do, what they can do. We based it around the PRIMA device. So yeah, exactly. We're listening to what people want, and the company will take that on board. And that is what's key at the moment, is trying to deliver something that you know that people will use, that will be benefit in their daily life. It's not just about doing research. You have to listen to everyone around you,
Yeah.
to develop a technology. And it's great. The company are very tuned into this, which I've not seen. But I do a lot of research, so yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I'm pleased we've been able to help out with that. People may be aware we have something called a research participants database where people can register to participate in research, and often that's sort of surveys or focus groups, that kind of work, and it's often about helping to demonstrate the impact of AMD, as you say, or other conditions on people's lives, so that it brings that sort of that wider perspective to research. And I can see my colleague Emma, as I knew she would, has instantly posted the link to that website in our chats. So if you're interested in that, and not particularly about this device, but just in general, helping to input into research, and that's how progress is made. So please do participate in that. And I wonder, just on a sort of last question, and I know you've answered a very many questions, so thank you for going over so many, and apologies if people have asked a question which we haven't been able to get to. But thinking beyond this system alone, how might you see artificial vision technology evolving in the kind of broader sense over the coming years and decades?
Well, I think that this might actually act as a bit of a benchmark. I mean, I go to a meeting every 2 years called the Eye and the Chip, where all the agencies, all the researchers come together and talk about what devices being trialed, what's in the pipeline. And I think that people are now going to look at what their technology can offer, and what patients. I think the reaction we've seen to this particular device, PRIMA, patients want to see forward vision, and I think they won't take anything less, really, unless there's good justification. So hopefully it's going to bring up a lot of the other platforms which are around. And I think there will be other devices around. I mean, which is good for patients, because not every patient is going to be suitable for one device, as we know, with any therapy. And I think in a couple of years, you may have other emerging devices coming along, which hopefully have similar effects. I think currently PRIMA is probably the only one I can see. But I think in the future, there's going to be other types of prosthetic devices coming along, and there's many in the pipeline at the moment which look very promising. I've seen another one at Stanford. But yeah, as I said, I think for patients, I think back in the day when I started, this is like 10 years ago, when a lot of the devices came along, they got a bit of sort of negative sort of reputation because it wasn't giving patients the ability to see forward vision. But there's now a whole new kind of focus on actually doing the research, gauging patients, designing things which are specifically for conditions. So I think it's all going to change in the next 5 years. That's my kind of impression of it.
Yeah, what a really nice, hopeful note to end on. I think it's often the case with all sorts of medical research. Once that first treatment becomes available in a new class, as you say, it spurs the field on, doesn't it? We see, that with drugs and other things. So yeah, really exciting developments.
Yeah, and I think the other things, the artificial vision community, my impression is very collegiate. They're willing to discuss things, they're willing to help each other. It's a very expensive business. When things aren't going the right direction, they might help you steer back on track because they know it's for patients' benefit. So if anything can help and if they can use their expertise, it's a very super specialized area. But from my kind of observations, people are kind of willing each other on to really help them to get to treatment level. So.
Well, thank you again so much for your time this evening, and more importantly, thank you for the extraordinary work you're doing. It really is. It almost feels unbelievable what you've described. It's so impressive, and I can just see by the over 200 people joining us this evening that really does show you the kind of interest out there in our community. So thank you very much for all your time again. Thank you everyone for all of the questions that you've asked, and I can see lots of people in the chat saying thank you very much as well. And as I said earlier, that's our final webinar of 2025. So thank you again for joining us throughout the year for our webinars. It's been a really great experience from my perspective, and we'll be returning in the new year with a new lineup on the 20th of January. So have a wonderful Christmas for all those who'll be celebrating, and a happy new year. And I look forward to seeing many of you in January. So thank you very much. All the best. Goodbye.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for our listeners. Thank you.